Hi friend, welcome to Born for Homeschool. I'm Rachel Bourne. Today we're continuing our discussion on the big homeschool questions, and this is video 3 in our mini-series. So I will leave a link in the description box below of the playlist for this series. So today we're talking about the big question, how do I plan my homeschool calendar? When should I start homeschooling? When should our first day of school be, our last day of school be? When should we take breaks? How many weeks do we need to be homeschooling? We're going to discuss all of those things in today's video. Before we get started, you may want to have a few supplies on hand. You'll want to have a calendar, a pen and pencil, a notebook, and maybe a list of the holidays during the school year. So after I gather my supplies, step number 1 is to prepare. I grab my notebook and a pen and I make a list of all of the weeks of the school year. And I also make sure that I have a list of holidays handy to just be thinking about where those holidays fall in the school year. Step number 2 in planning your homeschool calendar is to know your requirements. In the first video of this series, we talked about how to start homeschooling, and the first thing is to look up your local homeschool law. And if you already have that looked up and researched, then you'll know the requirements set by your state. And that's really important for planning out your homeschool calendar. Here in our state, we can log hours of instruction or homeschool days. And I prefer to keep track of our homeschool days. And so we have to log 180 days in a school year. So I had that written down to make sure that we meet that requirement for our homeschool. Step number 3 in planning your homeschool calendar is to plan in pencil. So you might find it helpful to plan backwards. So when I'm planning to log 180 days. And if we're doing homeschool 5 days a week, that breaks down to 36 weeks. So typically, I look at the date that I want to be finished in our homeschool and I work backwards. Some things to think about as you plan would be if you want to take off for birthdays and where the holidays fall. I know some homeschoolers like to take off the entire month of December for the holidays, so that might be something that you want to do. You'll just need to figure out what makes sense for you and your family. So something else you may want to think about is margin. And I like to plan about 2 weeks of extra flexible time in margin for our homeschool. So I pick a date that I'd really like to be finished by and try to give myself a couple of weeks of margin. And that way, if life happens or sickness happens, if there's an emergency or a trip or life changes unexpectedly, then you have that little bit of a buffer for margin and still getting the school days that you need to have without being stressed out about it. So I like to plan a little bit of margin just to help me to relax a little bit more and know that I have extra days in case we need to take them throughout the year. So step number 4 in creating your homeschool calendar is to write it down. So now that you have the dates penciled in and the weeks that you want to take and the days that you want to start and the days you want to end, now it's time to take your planner and to write down where you would like to be and the days that you want to have off. And writing it down on paper now, once you've got it all set, ensures that you don't have to stop midway through the year and refigure out what you were thinking and planning at the beginning of the school year. So this is just the progress of my homeschool calendar. This is just the weeks listed out, starting at the end of when I wanted to finish school and counting backwards to see when we needed to start. We actually started school on the 16th of August, and so counting out the weeks and things that I need to think about to comply with our state law here, the days and testing and evaluations and such that I need to be thinking about and scheduling for this year. And yeah, and then just vacation and holiday time off and holidays that I want to be thinking about and know when they're happening. Not necessarily that we will take off for those days, but we might do something special for school for that day. So those are helpful to know and have handy here right next to our calendar page. This homeschool calendar is part of this my homeschool planner, and I have a video where I set up the planner, and I'll put a link in the description box below if you want to check out that video of how I set up my homeschool planner here. And this calendar and the holidays page is just right here in front of the dates and the calendar where I keep track of everything that we do throughout the school year. So that's where this is in my homeschool planner. I would love to hear if you have any special holidays or things that you are sure to take off every single year. It's always fun to see the traditions that other families have. So leave me a comment if you guys do something special throughout your homeschool year, something that you make sure that you plan in your calendars. I hope you found this video to be helpful. If you did, please leave it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to Born for Homeschool as we wrap up our mini series on the big homeschool questions. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.